Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Will from the Oasis Protocol Foundation. Today we are having an event with Chainstack and sort of preparation for our current hackathon that's ongoing. We're joined today by Ethan, developer lead at Chainstack. Ethan, do you want to do a brief introduction?
Hey, good morning. Good morning. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, I can hear you.
Perfect. Yeah, I'm excited for our workshop and live stream here today. My name is Ethan. I go by the alias Tabasco online. I'm the developer relations lead here at Chainstack. So I've been in Web3 for a few years now. I've been at Chainstack for over a year and love every day of it. I'm very excited to talk today about Oasis, building on Oasis with Chainstack. Super impressed with everything Oasis has been building and shipping recently. And I think this will be a perfect opportunity to talk about Chainstack and support some of the developers here.
Yeah, absolutely. So, just for the audience, the way that we're going to do this is I'm going to do a brief slideshow on our recent product, the Oasis Privacy Layer, as well as our Sapphire network. And then Ethan is going to give a demonstration on how to set up a Chainstack node on Sapphire, as well as a brief technical demonstration of how to build code on Sapphire, or it's one of their, I guess, reference code bases they've worked on. Which I think is pretty amazing. So anyway, without further ado, I'll get into the presentation. Okay. So I did last week for our event with Seller. I did go over this slideshow, so I'll be a little bit brief for those who are attending both events. But basically, we are Oasis Network, and we just recently built a privacy layer for Web3. So the basic, basically what Oasis Network is a privacy first layer one network. And this is enabled by our sort of unique architecture. It's a modular architecture, I guess somewhat now analogous to ETH 2.0. We have sort of our underlying consensus layer, which is similar to the beacon chain. With basically what our consensus layer does is it handles staking governance as well as validation of our execution layer. The one major difference from other networks is that our consensus layer cannot handle or does not support, I would say, smart contracts. And this gives us the ability to hit really high TPS, transactions per second, about 1,000 TPS. So that's quite a big achievement for us, and it gives us a lot of flexibility as well as the ability to do things like, cross-chain messaging or cross network messaging on top of our execution layer through the consensus layer. On top of the consensus layer is we have paratimes, which stands for parallel runtimes. They're pretty similar in a lot of ways to rollups. In fact, they pretty much are rollups. Just at the time when we came out with the network, this sort of layer one, layer two idea hadn't really come into fruition yet. So we currently have 3 paratimes on Oasis. We have the Emerald paradigm, which is our EVM compatible paradigm. We have the Cypher paradigm, which is our confidential network supporting WebAssembly based smart contracts. And then the one that we're going to talk about today is the Sapphire paradigm. It's our newest release, and it's something that we're quite excited about. It's the first ever confidential EVM. So it's an EVM that supports encrypted smart contract state. Basically, what these paradigms do is they submit root hashes or bare metal proofs to the underlying consensus layer, and then are validated there. And so, as you can see, it works very similarly to a rollup. The major sort of, I guess, differences is that they use bare metal proofs instead of fraud proofs or validity proofs. And this allows them to be quite flexible in terms of what sort of privacy technologies they can support, as well as it gives them maybe not as high TPS, a couple hundred TPS versus a couple thousand, but it does also allow for instant finality because the consensus layer has instant finality as well. So a bit about our confidential runtimes, which is Sapphire and Cypher paradigms. Basically, the way that the confidentiality works is that all validators on the network run what are known as trusted execution environments, which operate as sort of a black box, which the validators can't see inside. So basically what happens is that all data, all transactions and state changes are encrypted. They go inside the black box for computation. They get decrypted. The computation is done in the black box, just like it's done on any VM, any EVM. And then the data is re-encrypted on its way out. And so in this way, we can create a runtime that has encrypted smart contract state, while also offering like the same user experiences and developer experiences as other EVM networks, which is quite a breakthrough in Web3 and something that we're really excited about. So basically what this does for, what our sort of goals are is to create high scalability, so high transactions per second, the ability to do computation, and the ability to have higher amounts of storage on chain to offer privacy. So one of the things that we often think about is like Web 2.0 and how, or I guess Web 1.0, where was the real like expansion moment? And, in our minds, this came from like the HTTP to the HTTPS sort of change. Once you could have like encrypted sessions while browsing the web, that's when sort of, all of the breakthroughs in Web 1, e-commerce and these types of things came through. And we think that, in order for Web 3.0 to have that same moment, we need to allow for confidentiality and encrypted state. And so that's why we took on this initiative, and we're excited to sort of start presenting that and seeing what people build on it today. And then finally is like decentralized identity. It goes hand in hand with privacy, but with this privacy comes the ability to create entirely better decentralized identity solutions where people truly can own their own data, and then basically grant and revoke access to that data to parties as needed. And in the same way that sort of, I guess the way I would phrase it is like, up until now, the real thing that blockchain and Bitcoin was able to innovate on is the ability to own an asset, right? And so with Bitcoin, you can own a Bitcoin and sort of send transactions back and forth. With Ethereum came the ability to do more complicated type financial transactions, but still it was limited to like ownership of sort of assets. And the asset that is currently, that Sapphire is looking to enable is the ability to own your own data and then, monetize it, sell it, share it, and these types of things. So that was a bit about Sapphire, but basically, once we launched Sapphire, again, the industry's first confidential EVM, we quickly discovered that the benefits and the privacy that is offered by Sapphire is not limited to only applications built natively on the network, but in fact, we have the ability to sort of allow people to offload their confidential computation needs to Sapphire, and in this way, we can offer a large amount of its privacy benefits and confidential computation benefits to any EVM across Web 3.0. And that's what we have been trying to achieve this whole time is to empower Web 3 and to provide value to this expanding industry. So sorry about that. So basically, like where are the type of use cases that the Oasis privacy layer can sort of benefit? DAOs. So DAOs and governance, I guess. So there's the ability to, I guess, right now on other EVM networks, you don't have the ability to like sort of hide what your votes are. And so what this means is that like this introduces like a lot of bias into the governance process. In the traditional world, all things like political elections, all sorts of governance processes have the ability for confidential voting, but this is not possible until Sapphire. And so, our governance frameworks has kind of been acting with their hands tied behind their backs. And so with Sapphire and the Oasis privacy layer, we can now enable dApps on any network to offer confidential voting to their applications. Again, we talked a bit about decentralized identity. Gaming is the example I probably give the most, because I think that almost any compelling game involves some form of confidential logic. So, for example, like poker, you can't know what's in the other player's hand. You can't know what the next card coming is. And again, this is not possible with other EVM networks because the state is entirely transparent, meaning that everyone will be able to see what the next card is, and everyone will be able to see what's in the other player's hands. And with Sapphire, we can finally avoid this trade-off of taking things off chain, losing the decentralization and the high integrity that comes with it, in order to have privacy. And DeFi, I think the one that we've really highlighted is MEV. Minor extractable value is sort of this idea of bots that are watching the network are seeing what transactions are being added to the mempool, and then front running those transactions prior to them being executed, and sort of taking that arbitrage opportunity for themselves. With Sapphire, you're able to sort of hide the mempool, and therefore avoid MEV. So we went over a lot of this functionality. Again, I spoke about this last week, so I want to give Ethan the time to give his presentation. So I'll probably breeze right through some of these slides. So we talked a bit about the use cases already. Yeah, so I guess the way that I would explain Sapphire is I would like to explain, I guess a bit about how each of these use cases works. So with the secret ballot use case, basically what you would be doing is you'd be creating a parallel governance smart contract on the Oasis Sapphire network, as well as have your assets and everything on your home network. And so what you would do is when you create this parallel governance smart contract, the user flow would look something along the lines of the user goes to the governance module on their lending protocol. The lending protocol asks them to cast a vote. MetaMask would automatically switch to Sapphire network. Their votes, they would then submit a transaction with their encrypted vote. At the end of the governance period, all the votes would be confidentially aggregated, and the result would be sent back through a cross-chain messaging bridge to the home network, where the sort of governance proposal will pass or fail, and the changes can take place or not take place. With gaming is probably the other one that I like to give an example about. So you can imagine like a role-playing game, like maybe on Polygon, right? Polygon has lots of users, lots of TVL, and lots of liquidity for gaming. But role-playing games, almost all role-playing games that I've ever played have these ideas of quests, riddles, puzzles, that sort of thing. And so again, like I said with poker, like if you on other networks, because of their entirely transparent nature, you would be able to see what the solution to these quests, riddles, and puzzles are prior to even playing them. And so, it doesn't really become a game at that point. And so what you could do again is create instead of moving your entire game to Sapphire, as well as, trying to convince your user base to move, and putting in all this work, instead of doing all that, if you wish to have this sort of feature, you can just build a parallel smart contract on Sapphire containing that quest, riddle, or puzzle. And again, what will happen is the user will play the game until they get to the point where they have to solve some riddle. The MetaMask will automatically switch to the Sapphire network. You'll submit your encrypted solution to that riddle. If your solution is correct, the smart contract on Sapphire will then send a message over a cross-chain messaging bridge to the home network, where it will then unlock your NFT reward or your on-chain experience or something along those lines. And so in this way, you can sort of build modular applications which function cross-chain. I think basically the way that we view the Oasis privacy layer is similar to a layer 2 or like a Arbitrum or Celestia, right? Arbitrum allows you to offload sort of your scalability needs. Celestia allows you to offload your sort of data availability needs. Well, Oasis privacy layer will allow you to offload your confidential computation and privacy needs. And so this is just a quick infographic of how the privacy layer will work. So you can see that there's the home network with holding the assets and the public data. Then the user is sending signed messages from one chain to the other. One thing that I did not mention earlier was the gas fee layer. So in that same riddle example, right? If you really want to abstract away and create an immersive gaming experience, you can use a gas fee layer so that the user pays in, we talked about Polygon, the Matic token, right? And so if the user doesn't even know essentially that they're leaving the chain, they're paying in the gas token they've been paying in the entire time. And basically the experience would be the same as solving that riddle on Polygon. So And then you can see that they're basically message passing bridges or sending messages back and forth to connect these two smart contracts. Anyway, that was just a bit about the Sapphire network. I know I went over it very briefly, but yeah, I think a lot of our community is familiar with it at this point. If you have any questions, just add them, and then I will get to them at the end of the presentation. So anyway, that was it for me. Now we're going to be joined by Ethan to talk about a little bit about how you can start using Chainstack to set up your node so that you can create, I guess, more scalable and higher performant dApps, as well as a bit about some of the work they've done in demoing the Sapphire network.
Sure. First of all, that presentation is super exciting. As a developer myself, seeing the use cases that Sapphire enables in terms of like what you mentioned, gaming, DeFi, et cetera, identity, right? All these different use cases is incredible. I even have a slide, and we'll go over in a second, where I talk about specifically the use cases, the endless possibilities for Sapphire. And really what we're trying to do at Chainstack, and I'll get into this more in a second as well, is enable builders to take advantage of these use cases and really innovate in a way where they can figure out the best ways to utilize Sapphire and ultimately create kind of next generation Web3 applications. And William, I really liked your sort of comparison of HTTP and HTTPS and that evolution. And I think Sapphire really does do a good job of sort of being a parallel to that for Web3. So very exciting. I'm going to quickly share a PowerPoint presentation. We'll see if we can get this to work here. Let's see, I might share it this way. Let's see if this works. So I'll present here, share my screen. All right. Let's see. Okay, I'm going to share my PowerPoint window here, and then we can go through it that way. All right. Let me move over my, I think to my second monitor here. Perfect. Let's see. Wrong monitor. Let me go to my second monitor, actually. It might be a little bit better. Okay, 1 second. See the ails of having having two different monitors. Okay, let's go to screen 2 here, and then I will share this, and we'll see if we can see it. You can let me know in a second. Let's see. All right, William, can you see?
Yeah, I can see your screen.
Perfect. Awesome. All right, well, let me move this over here, and we can jump into it. So the presentation today, what we're going to be talking about, of course, gave a quick preview a moment ago, but we're going to be running through the process of essentially loading a node, deploying a node, and starting to build on Oasis. So I'll go through exactly what Chainstack is, how you can deploy an Oasis Sapphire node on Chainstack. I'll go through some documentation that we've written, kind of some examples that we've created for deploying a contract on Oasis, and as well as even showcase some of the practical differences between, for example, deploying a contract on Ethereum versus Oasis, and what that privacy actually looks like in reality. And we'll talk about that kind of general thing. And I'm pretty excited about it. Like I said, I think that builders right now, especially the builders listening to the presentation today, everybody here has a fantastic opportunity to create some very exciting next generation web applications. So let's jump into it. Let's kind of talk about Chainstack, stuff like that. So like I mentioned already, my name is Ethan. I go by the alias Tabasco online. My Twitter handle is @TabascoWeb3. I'm the developer relations lead here at Chainstack. We actually did a Twitter space not too long ago when we first announced our Oasis Sapphire integration natively on our platform. We did a Twitter space with you guys and talk a lot about the same integration. So I definitely recommend listening to that as well if you haven't. All right, so let's jump into quickly kind of a rundown of exactly what Chainstack is for those of you who aren't super familiar with it. So the sort of elevator pitch that we typically like to give is that Chainstack is the leading suite of services connecting developers with Web3 infrastructure. This is kind of the tagline that we give. What this actually means in reality is that Chainstack provides very fundamental foundational infrastructure to developers, builders, and even users in some cases to access and connect with different blockchains. In this case, Oasis Sapphire. So, for example, to paint a better picture here. Whenever you open MetaMask, right, and conduct a transaction, or whenever you deploy a smart contract, or whenever you start working with Oasis Sapphire and Web3.js, for example, all these things require one component of infrastructure, in some cases, multiple components of infrastructure, to allow you to actually do these things, to allow you to interact with the network. One of the most foundational components of these different sort of this infrastructure stack that we offer is RPC nodes. So I'm sure many people here are familiar in a large capacity with RPC nodes. RPC nodes essentially act as what I usually like to say is the Ethernet cord connecting your dApp, connecting you as an individual with the blockchain. So whenever load up your balance on MetaMask, or even load up a DEX or something like that, or a game, DeFi protocol, all these actions, all these on-chain actions, whether it's writing data or reading data, is being routed through an RPC node. So an RPC node is used for deploying contracts, connecting with the blockchain. It is at its most fundamental layer the thing that connects you, in this case, with Oasis Sapphire. So what we call RPC nodes on our platform, we call them elastic nodes, and this is we kind of brand this as the world's most resilient Web3 API, designed to deliver unbounded performance at an extremely affordable price point and without sacrificing reliability, customization, anything like that. So we'll get into it more in a moment, but essentially at Chainstack, we offer RPC nodes, which these sort of base layer connectivity pieces of infrastructure for your dApp and for you as a user. We offer these to developers and to builders to essentially build their application upon very reliable and performant infrastructure, so they can focus on innovating rather than focusing on wrestling with public RPCs or less performant infrastructure. So these are elastic nodes. They're very affordable, very performant. And right now we support over 24 different blockchains for elastic nodes, including Oasis Sapphire, of course. Additionally, on top of RPC nodes, which most people will agree that these kind of exist at the uttermost base layer of blockchain infrastructure. Beyond this, we also have a lot of data solutions, and we offer APIs and stuff like that. Specifically, kind of beyond elastic nodes, which are our flagship product. We also have subgraphs. So subgraphs I won't get too deep into it right now, but subgraphs are a very interesting data indexing solution where you can essentially index events that occur on chain, smart contract events, stuff like that, and query those events, essentially what you're indexing through GraphQL. So it's a very interesting data indexing solution. Right now, we don't offer elastic indexers for Oasis. Elastic indexers refer to the sort of self-serve, on-demand subgraph deployment service. But if anybody here is familiar with subgraphs and you're interested in deploying a subgraph on Oasis Sapphire, then definitely reach out to me or our team, and we can get you on a dedicated indexer potentially. So that's something that we can do for any EVM chain, of course, including Oasis Sapphire. In addition to subgraphs, which is beyond RPC nodes, our kind of primary data indexing service, we also have IPFS, which is currently in beta, not publicly released yet, but essentially, Chainstack IPFS utilizes thousands of storage nodes distributed globally to essentially allow you to store data directly on the blockchain, enabling kind of reliable and zero point of failure data storage. So this is something that we'll actually be releasing to the public soon, but also something to note, Elastic nodes for base connectivity, subgraphs for data indexing, IPFS for data storage, and then finally our marketplace, which is also a very interesting thing for developers, for all the builders here. If you're familiar with APIs like Covalent or Novus or FYEO, essentially we aggregate API providers from across the ecosystem, including providers that support Oasis. Like I know Oasis, of course, you guys are very familiar with Covalent. We love them. We're big fans of the API. We actually aggregate Covalent natively on our platform. So on Chainstack, you can get access to the Covalent API on the same dashboard that you run your Elastic node on, or that you deploy your subgraph. So that's our marketplace. It's essentially a way to get access to a variety of different APIs directly within Chainstack. So essentially what we're kind of positioning Chainstack to be is a platform that as a developer you can go to and get everything that you need to build your application, right? From at the most base layer, your RPC node, right? And this is really important. Your RPC node, I can kind of go to our next slide here and talk more about that, specifically in relation to Oasis. Your RPC node is one of, if not the most important component of infrastructure for your application. This is because, whenever you're building an app, if you're using an RPC node that is unreliable, so it's down all the time, or the latency is high, or it doesn't have the configuration that you need. Maybe it's not, it's not configured in a way that enables, the different RPC calls that you're making, whatever it may be. This can completely compromise the functionality and the usability of your application. So because of this, it's really important to use an RPC node that empowers your use case, that is performant, right? Performant meaning low latency, that's reliable. So it has a high uptime. It's something that you can access 24/7 and never have to worry about potentially being down or something like that. And that is customizable to a point in which it enables you to build exactly what you want to on Oasis Sapphire. So utilizing an RPC node that's strong and that empowers your use case is key to building a balanced and complete application on Oasis, and something that truly can take advantage of sort of the privacy confidential component of Oasis. So what I have here on the slide is essentially that Chainstack Elastic nodes, to give you sort of another elevator pitch here, can enable developers, enable builders, which I'm sure are many of you listening, to build very powerful privacy-enabled dApps on Oasis. You're kind of able to focus on the functionality and the innovation of your application rather than wrestling with the latency or the kind of less important components of Web3 application development. So Chainstack Elastic Nodes free up a lot of time and energy to focus on the development of your application and developing a powerful application, while also empowering that use case through customizability, performance, affordability, and reliability. So this is kind of the core component of Oasis. I believe we first launched Oasis Sapphire support just a few months ago. So we have mainnet and testnet natively on our platform, and it's very easy to launch. It takes just a few seconds, and you can start building with Sapphire nodes, start building your application in minutes, pretty much, and just a few clicks. So this is something that, of course, we've been working on for a few years now, and we're at a point now where, as a developer, Chainstack has become a platform that can truly power your application and power your kind of developer journey, especially throughout more innovative and kind of interesting solutions like Oasis Sapphire. Go to the next slide here. All right, so this is the exciting point here. So I'm going to stop sharing for a moment. Let's see if I can exit that out, and I'll stop my screen. I'll open up a new tab here. Let's see. I'm going to give a quick live demonstration of what it looks like to actually deploy a node on Oasis Sapphire. So I'm going to go through kind of the process, show you what the dashboard on Chainstack looks like, so you can have a better idea of exactly what I'm talking about here in regards to Chainstack as a platform and what the deployment process looks like. So let me open up my browser here and open up a new tab. All right, let me share this screen. Hopefully this will work here. All right. Share screen. And let's see here. Can you see this? Looks good.
I see Amity D5 test 3, test 4, test 5.
Perfect. Yep. So this is my my Chainstack console. So this is my personal account. This is what I use for developing all my own applications. As you can see, I have about 9 different nodes running on this account. So we're going to go ahead and deploy an Oasis Sapphire node. First, to kind of run down what you're seeing on your screen right now, whenever you sign up for Chainstack and log into your account, this is the first page that you see. So, of course, we have my list of projects here. Amity DeFi is an application that I made about a little over a year ago. Test 3, test 4, and test 5 are just random test projects. On the side here, we can see, of course, subgraphs, IPFS. These are both things that I mentioned a few moments ago. Settings, billing, marketplace, etc. So this is the Chainstack console. This is kind of the one-stop area to manage your Web3 infrastructure. So let's go ahead and deploy a node on Oasis. So I'm going to go into my test 4 project here. This is what I'm going to be using for testing in this case. As you can see, it's a public chain project. We also offer consortium nodes if that's something that you're interested in. But in this case, we'll be just sticking with Oasis. I'm going to click on Get Started on the Join Network tab here. And then now comes the fun part. This is the part that I always enjoy. So now we can choose what blockchain protocol we're deploying on. As you can see, there's quite a few here. So like William mentioned, a big part of Oasis and sort of this privacy layer, which I love the idea of, by the way, and I think this is a massive opportunity for builders. A big part of this is that, on Chainstack, if let's say you're building an application on Polygon, right? We can kind of go back to the example that William gave in terms of, like, say you're building an RPG with quests and stuff like that, and you want some, like, or riddles or whatever, something that needs a level of privacy. On Chainstack, you can deploy the infrastructure to run your application on Polygon, and then on the same dashboard within the same 30-second time span, you can deploy a node on Oasis Sapphire to enable the privacy component of your EVM application. So this is really cool. So essentially, you can deploy nodes on one of, I believe it's over 25 total blockchain protocols that we now support on our Elastic nodes. So let's go ahead and deploy something for Oasis Sapphire. As you can see, we have Oasis Sapphire right here. We can click on this. Currently, we support the Oasis Sapphire mainnet as well as the testnet. In this case, I'm going to deploy a mainnet node, and we can click on next. Now in here, of course, we have the customizability component that I mentioned earlier. You can choose a variety of options from Elastic, which is the kind of a very affordable, reliable, performant infrastructure stack that I mentioned earlier. If you need something that's dedicated meaning something that is run like on its own machine completely for your project, then we could talk about that. And you can reach out to us. We can get that going for you on Oasis Sapphire. Additionally, you can choose between the mode of your node, so full or archive. If your application leverages archive data, so historical states on the blockchain, then you can deploy one on there. In this case, you can contact us and we can get you an archive node for Oasis. We talk about that and potentially deploy something dedicated for you. By default, this will be full, so we'll stick with that for now. Of course, you can also choose between the hosting, which is another key component of customizability when you're deploying your RPC node, when you're choosing kind of where you want to deploy it and on what cloud provider. So in this case, of course, we have kind of two main options: Chainstack or private hosting. Private hosting allows you to host on your own infrastructure, on your own private infrastructure. In this case, we're going to use Chainstack hosting, which will deploy it on a location that we have kind of pre-configured for automatic deployments. So to choose where that location is, we can click on this location drop down here. In this case, the primary location that we have for Oasis Sapphire is Chainstack Cloud. Chainstack Cloud is actually one of our recent releases, and it's essentially a custom cloud platform that allows us to launch nodes in a very intentional, high-performance way that keeps costs low for developers. In addition to this, of course, we have AWS, Google Cloud Platform, Microsoft Azure, Virtuoso, etc. And sometimes with these things, performance looks different across different cloud providers and some points. Of course, there's different locations offered. Chainstack Cloud allows us to essentially offer a very intentional solution to developers that keeps costs low for all the builders, as well as performance high and reliability high. So that's kind of the sort of trifecta of RPC nodes, right? High reliability, high performance, and low costs. In this case right now, our primary location available for Elastic nodes on Oasis Sapphire is Amsterdam on Chainstack Cloud. So we will select this. We'll keep the name as node 1 and click on next. And here we can kind of see a rundown of everything on here right now. This account is on the growth plan. So I'll have 20 million request units included. And then per 1 million extra request units that I use, it'll be $15. The way that we calculate request units essentially is that every request that you make to your node, in this case, full node requests, are counted as 1. If you have an archive node, then those are counted as 2. And then, of course, subgraphs are kind of counted independently on a different kind of request unit basis. So this is how we calculate that. It's very easy to essentially predict what it will cost you at the end of the month. You say, I'm going to run 5 million Oasis Sapphire requests. Then that'll actually be within your usage, and that'll be covered by your growth plan. So as you can see here, 20 million request units included. You can see all of the options that I just chose. Elastic full node on Amsterdam, in Amsterdam on Chainstack Cloud. And the client is Oasis node. We can click on join network, and this will start deploying it. And there we go. So now the node is going to essentially deploy and sync to the blockchain. This usually takes a few minutes, so we don't have to sit here and wait for it. But I'll kind of talk while this is syncing here. Essentially, what this does is this utilizes a technology that's exclusive to Chainstack called Bolt. This allows the node to sync completely in just a few minutes. If you deploy something that we call an Elastic, a global Elastic node, which we have available for a few of our protocols, not currently for Oasis, but if you go ahead and deploy something on Ethereum, for example, then you can leverage a global Elastic node. Those will deploy instantly, and those will be load balanced throughout the world rather than being locked to a specific location like we have here for the Amsterdam hosting on Oasis. This means that whenever you query the node, that whenever you actually use the node itself, you're going to be querying a server located in Amsterdam. So this affects the latency. This means that if you're very far away, the latency might be a little bit higher. If you're close to it, and that's great because the latency will be super low. So that's essentially what that means. If you deploy a global Elastic node, which is available on a few of our other protocols, and we're continuing to roll it out to more protocols every month pretty much, then you'll have something that isn't locked to a specific region, something that's available globally with kind of lower, more consistent latencies. So as you can see, it's already synced. It's already running. That took 45 seconds, a minute maybe. So we can click on this and hop into our node here. And as you can see, we have all of our details. We have, of course, the client, API namespaces, type, all of the configuration settings that we created earlier. You can scroll down, see some cool metrics. So the amount of requests that have been made. This will be a bar chart with the method calls and kind of the volume of method calls that we've created. So, for example, ETH get balance, ETH call, ETH block number, stuff like that. The response codes, so whether your requests have failed or been successful. And then, of course, the kind of important part here, which is the access and credentials. So whenever you're building an application, whenever you're doing anything from deploying a smart contract to interacting with Oasis Sapphire in a scripting environment like with Web3.js or Web3.py or something like that, or Ethers.js, whatever, right? Or whenever you're even using MetaMask, right? Whenever you're creating your Oasis Sapphire network on MetaMask, at some point you're going to need to use an RPC node. And that's what this is. This is the HTTPS endpoint here. So you can copy this. You can even add to MetaMask natively on here if you want to use it within MetaMask. Copy this, throw it into your deployment script for Hardhat, for example. Throw it into Web3.js, Ethers, Web3.py, whatever it may be. And that'll act as your central connectivity layer with Oasis. So this endpoint is kind of where the magic happens. And this will connect you directly to the Oasis Sapphire network, allow you to start building, allow you to start using it reliably, performant, and of course, at a very low cost. So this is kind of the core of what it looks like to deploy a node and, of course, use a node through Chainstack. As you can see, it was very quick. Deploy a node, chose the configuration settings, let it sync, and then copied the endpoint here, and we can use it wherever we'd like, whether it's in our dApp, whether it's in a smart contract, or whether it's in our wallet. So that's kind of what that process looks like. I will open up my presentation again, and we will move forward.
Before we move on, real quick, Ethan, I just had 2 quick questions.
Sure.
One is regarding, you said that if people want to reach out regarding subgraphs support, this is something that we have been asked in our own Discord. What's the best way for them to reach out to you? Is it through Discord? Is there a type form? How can they get in contact and say, hey, we need a subgraph on Oasis?
Yeah, so you can, of course, number one, go to chainstack.com. You can open up a support ticket if you'd like with support@chainstack.com. That's our support email. If you want to reach out to us directly, you can also message me at Tabasco Web3 on Twitter. We also, of course, have a Discord. You can go to chainstack.com, scroll down, and join our Discord there. Our entire team's on there as well. So if you want to connect to us through Discord, then we have that option. Telegram, anything like that, you can contact me on Telegram too if you'd like. My Telegram is Tabasco Dev. Or you can join our Telegram. It's just t.me/chainstack is our Telegram. You can join there and ask us as well. It's very easy to connect with us. And then if you're a larger organization or somebody that wants a dedicated indexer for Oasis, we can definitely talk about that and figure out ways to get that done for you.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks so much. And then my second question, Chainstack has been extremely kind in helping us support our hackathon, and they actually have offered a code to give anyone building on for the hackathon 1 month of free support of calls, I believe, if I don't have that mistaken. How can they utilize that code and to get their free calls?
Yeah, so I'll have a slide at the end as well that kind of displays the code on screen, but also for those who are looking to start building with Chainstack. So if you want to deploy a node and kind of go through the same process and start leveraging high performance infrastructure for your application, or even as a user just within MetaMask, then you can do so by going to chainstack.com, signing up. And we have an exclusive coupon code for all developers or users that would like to get started with 1 month of Chainstack Growth Plan for free. This is worth about $50. That's how much it costs per month. And you can get a free month by going, once you sign up, going to your billing page and typing in the coupon code OASIS. It's OASIS in all caps. You can submit that, type that in, and it'll give you 1 month of free growth plan to start building or using Chainstack as your central connectivity layer for Oasis. And of course, the growth plan gives you access to launching 10 nodes. So the presentation or the kind of live demonstration that I just gave was actually on an account running growth plan. So that's what the promotion is for. So you can launch an account that uses that same plan launch as many nodes as you could ever need pretty much, and then use it that way. And that'll be Oasis in all caps.
Awesome. Thank you so much for going over that. And yeah, thank you so much for supporting our hackathon and the projects trying to build. I'm sure that they're going to appreciate the ability to start playing with Chainstack at no cost to themselves.
Sure. Yeah, and I'm super excited to see everything that all the products and projects that are built out of this hackathon and really built out of Oasis over the next few months. I know I've said this all the time, and I think I've said this publicly on Twitter too, but I truly do think that Oasis presents almost a new paradigm for builders in terms of being able to build applications that are truly real world adjacent, if that makes sense, right? Like a lot of Web3 applications in the past and over the past few years have been blocked by the fact that confidentiality and sort of having encrypted contract state data hasn't been possible. And the number of use cases that open up from this are really exciting, and I can't wait to see how builders leverage Chainstack to kind of realize some of these use cases and build applications that leverage these things.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think, I feel exactly the same. I always talk about basically what we're trying to do is just expand the sophistication, complexity of like what can be done with Web3, and I appreciate that. You see us as part of one of the teams that are working towards that goal.
But yeah, definitely. I will open up my presentation here again today. Open this up here. But yeah, definitely. I think that builders, and specifically when you're building, it can sometimes be a little bit difficult to get started and to build reliably and stuff like that. And it's important to not kind of overcomplicate it for yourself, if that makes sense. And that's how you can really focus on use cases. Like I mentioned this a few moments ago, but I think I'm going to go back to my kind of main slide here. We actually have a quote from William here that we're gonna highlight. When you're building an application, specifically on such an interesting protocol like Oasis, something that enables such unique use cases and really is ripe for innovation, if that's maybe the right term to use, it's really important to be able to focus on what you're actually building, if that makes sense, right? In a lot of cases, and what people, I see this all the time as a developer and somebody who participates in the developer community very actively, so people oftentimes get caught up with the less important things, right? Like, for example, the infrastructure that they're using. They, spend months like trying to find something that works for them, and like, sometimes running their own node or whatever it may be, or like wrestling with public infrastructure. And this is always bad to see because you're sort of reducing the amount of time that you can spend actually building an application that leverages the underlying technology. So with Chainstack, what we're really hoping to achieve is being able to provide builders with a solution that allows them to very easily and very quickly, as we just saw, basically use an RPC node that's reliable and that's basically already set up for exactly what they need and empowers their use case, so that they can really start focusing on actually innovating and building something exciting with an Oasis. So that's, of course, a big part of why this is valuable for developers as well. On this slide specifically, I wanted to highlight, just continuing that same conversation, that same note, by actually a quote from William that we actually featured on our key kind of announcement article that we posted a few months ago. Of course, you can read it. It essentially just talks about the world of new possibilities it opens up with infrastructure, with Chainstack infrastructure, which is exactly what I was just talking about in terms of being able to truly utilize Oasis to leverage the power of the technology here with easy to launch and reliable infrastructure, like what we offer here at Chainstack. So that's kind of that key quote there.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that is really exciting to us about Chainstack is, like I said, our mission is to provide value to like all of Web3, and so the amount of chains that you have support for, as well as, like you said, that ability to create a dashboard with an endpoint on both chains, within like 30 seconds. This is the exact type of user experience that we want, and that's why we were so happy to partner with Chainstack to offer this to our developers and users. But anyway, I do know that you have a little one more part of your presentation, and we're have about 15 minutes left, so I want to give you some time to talk about that. And just thank you for all the kind words and for taking a moment to sort of talk about the potential that we see.
Sure. Yeah, super excited, and I'll actually have a slide dedicated to talking more about this, because as a developer myself, I'm always very excited to see things that push the boundaries of Web3, and I think that with what's happening here, that definitely qualifies in that case. So on that same note, actually, I also want to quickly highlight, and I'll start sharing my screen about this as well. I want to highlight an article that we actually released back during our announcement of our Oasis Sapphire integration. This article is actually part of our developer portal, which is an entire website basically dedicated to supporting developers and leveraging things like Oasis Sapphire. Examples, full tutorials on creating smart contracts, building different scripts, etc. I'm going to go through one that we created that essentially highlights I mentioned this in the beginning, but highlights kind of the uh, realistic differences between deploying a smart contract on Ethereum, for example, and deploying something on Oasis Sapphire, and actually what the privacy looks like in actuality, and of course deploying that with Chainstack nodes. So let me stop sharing again here real quick, and I will open that up. Let's see here. Of course, the developer portal in general is a fantastic resource for developers to start learning very quickly, and basically understand exactly the steps they need to take to start building. So I think I should be able to share this here. Let's see. All right. Can you see this? Look good?
Yes, I can see it. It's a little bit hard to read, but I think people can probably zoom in. And if I put it full screen, it's better. Okay, now it's full screen, so I can see it fine.
Perfect. Yeah, there's lots of text on this page. It's this is our developer portal. As you can see, I can kind of scroll up here. We have lots of stuff on this portal. We have our guides, which is this is one of our guides, a part of our Web3 Decoded series, which is a series of protocol-specific, technology-specific guides that run through very in-depth how to leverage certain technologies and provide full code examples and explanations and everything. We also have, of course, full API references for for Geth and Aragon, stuff like that, debug trace APIs, etc. We have recipes, which are like very short code snippets that allow you to basically copy something and paste into your IDE and start building very quickly, etc. So there's a lot to kind of unpack on this page. Specifically, I want to talk about something that we released, like I mentioned back during our original announcement, which is this article, Oasis Sapphire, Understanding Confidential Smart Contracts. So I don't have a ton of time. I won't go through exactly every step of the process here, but I did want to highlight this because this is a very good example of essentially using Chainstack in a practical use case, and also leveraging kind of Oasis Sapphire for very unique data privacy and stuff like that. So in this case, what we actually do in this article is deploy two smart contracts, or one smart contract deployed on two different networks. So I'll scroll down. You can see what that contract looks like here. As you can see, of course, we have kind of all of the main key points here. So this is the smart contract. This is a secret number game .sol. Essentially what this does is it kind of resembles a typical auction / bidding contract. So within this article, what we do is we deploy it, first of all, on Sepolia, which is, of course, the Ethereum testnet. If I can scroll down, I can see what that looks like here in terms of, this is our deployment script. So this is actually, this leverages our config over here, which you can see. That leverages a Chainstack endpoint for Sepolia and for Oasis Sapphire. We have our deployment script, which actually deploys it and then tests it. So we can see here, just to kind of not get too deep into the technical part, on Sepolia, when we execute the deployment script, which leverages our Sepolia endpoint and deploys the secret number game Solidity smart contract that we just looked over, this is what the response looks like. So we can see kind of all of these key numbers basically exposed out in the open and public, right? So we have 1,000 account submitted secret number, 1,000 decoded transaction input, and 1,000 for the other kind of number that we calculated here. So when you're deploying on a public blockchain on a completely, when that data is completely out in the open, like on Sepolia, for example, then you can very easily query all of this data just right there. So you can see when we deployed it and tested it, the smart contract that I just looked over, this is what it looks like. This is what the response looks like. Now let's look at what it looks like for Oasis, which I think is very interesting. So when we deploy the exact same contract, leveraging an Oasis Sapphire testnet node that was deployed on Chainstack, then we can see we run the deployment script right here using the Chainstack node. We can see what the output looks like now. So now we can see that it's not as transparent as Sepolia was. So now we can see that there's actual privacy involved in some of the data, in the state data that we included in that smart contract. So you can see there's even errors thrown here because that data is unavailable natively on Oasis because, of course, there's privacy enabled here. There's confidentiality enabled in the smart contract because it's deployed on Oasis and kind of the way that we set it up. So you can see we have 0. There's not even an input here. This one didn't even go through because it was invalid. So this is a very cool example. You can see here is the Oasis response, and then here is the Sepolia response. Big difference in terms of like what's actually available to what's available publicly on the blockchain. And this article does a very good job of essentially providing a rundown of the fact that typical blockchains that don't enable kind of this privacy stack, this privacy layer that Sapphire does, the fact that they're so open and that all this data is of course public compromises the secrecy in this case of this sort of auction bidding, this adjacent smart contract that we created here, secret number game. Sepolia compromises the secrecy of this game. So like what William was mentioning earlier with this kind of use cases of the RPG, DeFi, etc. All this data is spread out there and kind of eliminates a big part of the point of this. And then when we deploy it on Oasis, you can actually retain that central use case. You can actually have something that maintains secrecy, if that makes sense, that maintains privacy. And of course, this entire example is completely deployed through Chainstack Elastic nodes. So just a cool example, I think, to kind of showcase a practical real-world implementation of Elastic nodes, as well as showcasing a little bit about what that privacy actually looks like when you're deploying the same contract just on 2 different networks here. So you can find a lot more very similar articles, and you can dive more into this one specifically. Docs.chainstack.com. We have a ton here, as you can see on the side here, just emulating things. This is our Web3 Decoded series. Lots of Ethereum stuff, Polygon, Base, even this is one of our recent implementations. ZK Sync, Optimism, Oasis Sapphire, I think we even have a whole thing about subgraphs here as well. So there's a ton to dive into in this case, and you can go to docs.chainstack.com to learn a little bit more about these different protocols and as well as read through that article that I just showcased. So let me also quickly open up my presentation again here. I'll stop sharing, and we can kind of start concluding it here. This is the slide that I mentioned earlier, so let's see if I can share this. Present my second monitor again. All right, so you can see this and start sharing that there. Okay, perfect. All right, so I'm going to go to the most recent slide here. It resets it for some reason every single time. Let's go over here. Okay, so I wanted to highlight this. I know I've talked a lot about this already, but with Chainstack and specifically with kind of some of the examples that I mentioned, there is no better time to start building on Oasis, if that makes sense, right? Of course, we're kind of here for a hackathon, right? If you're going to start building an application that leverages this technology stack, that pushes the boundaries of Web3 through the means of leveraging Oasis, now is the time to do that. This is the perfect opportunity. You have Chainstack to launch your RPC nodes. If you even need something like subgraphs, and we can talk about that, you have all of the tools in your toolkit to start building, to focus on actually creating something innovative rather than, of course, like I mentioned, wrestling with infrastructure. So you have all these tools available. It's the perfect time to start building and realizing the possibilities with Oasis. And you can get started today by going to chainstack.com and launching an Oasis RPC node, throw that into your application, into your deployment script or Web3.js or whatever else you're using to build and interact with Oasis, even MetaMask if you want, and start building, start creating exciting applications. Right now is absolutely the perfect time to do it. And like I mentioned at the beginning, I can't wait to see the things that people build and the ways that people leverage Chainstack to build these things. Like I said, it's a huge opportunity for developers. But that's mostly it. It's time to start building things, time to start leveraging Oasis, time to start leveraging Chainstack to build on Oasis, and which brings me, of course, to kind of what we mentioned earlier, which is the coupon code. So beyond just the fact that this is a good time to build, we've made it even easier for everybody here to start working with Oasis Sapphire on Chainstack by, of course, providing 1 month free growth plan for everybody, which allows you to launch 10 nodes, including Chainstack Oasis. So, for example, you can launch on Chainstack Oasis Sapphire mainnet, Oasis Sapphire testnet, and the mainnet and testnet of whatever EVM protocol you're kind of deploying your dApp centrally on. So, and that's all available within this growth plan that you can claim right now by signing up to Chainstack, going to your billing page and using the coupon code Oasis. This is the perfect opportunity to either experiment with Oasis, experiment with Chainstack as a platform, and start building your application. So that's mostly it. I'll kind of keep this on the screen for a moment here. Coupon code Oasis. And I think it's a massive opportunity for all the developers in here to start building with very exciting and reliable infrastructure. And like I said, I can't wait to see what everybody builds.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ethan, for all the kind words. And I think we feel obviously very excited about the potential that we have as well. We're super happy to have Chainstack as like a partner as we launch. We move from our sort of soft launch phase to our full launch phase, and kick off with this hackathon. I think when we evaluated a lot of different partners for RPC providing, and it became clear that Chainstack, what you guys are doing, what your vision in the space is, it's just aligned very much with what we want to achieve. And again, I just want to thank you for offering this coupon code to anyone participating in the hackathon. I'm sure everyone's going to really appreciate it. Yeah, thank you for your time. And I think even to creating that technical demo, you guys, you never had to do that, but we truly appreciate it, highlighting some of the use cases and everything like that. I think it helps our developers truly see what can be built, as well as what I really enjoyed about that was like the highlighting the difference between Ethereum and Oasis. And I know we didn't really get into it too much while we were going over it, but like there are like specific examples of like watch out for this if you're used to doing it on Ethereum, because you have to actually change it up a bit if you're doing it on Oasis. And yeah, all of that, I think as with any new technology, there's sort of this learning curve, and Chainstack is providing a ton of support and helping us expedite that learning curve and get everyone brought to speed as quickly as possible. And we're just super excited about that. So as a closing note from my side, anyone who's interested in participating in the hackathon, you can reach out to us on Discord, Telegram, anything like that. It's also on our website, and you can Google privacy for Web3 hackathon. I probably should have created a QR code, but I'll have one for next time. Yeah, so any questions, comments, concerns, just reach out to us in one of our various communities. Follow us on Twitter for any updates, and we'll be having a few more events like this over the next few weeks to sort of keep the information flow going and highlight some cool things for our hackathon. Are there any closing thoughts from your side, Ethan? Any upcoming events from Chainstack that you maybe want to share?
Nothing major, of course. If you're a developer on Oasis, or even if you're a user that wants to leverage Chainstack infrastructure to interact with Oasis or any other of our 25 protocols that we support, then you can get started by going to chainstack.com and signing up, and of course using the Oasis coupon code to do so. And of course, if you're a developer and you want to start learning more about leveraging Chainstack, or if you want to talk about Oasis or anything else, my DMs are always open on Twitter @TabascoWeb3. Very happy to talk to you. Anything, just kind of talk about blockchain, whatever you want. Help you build an Oasis or any other protocol. Definitely reach out to me, or you can of course reach out to our team at Chainstack HQ on Twitter. But I think that's about it from my side. Definitely check out all of our recent events. We actually just did a space with 1inch last week, and we have a lot of other things coming out this week as well as next week, which you can keep up to date with and kind of see everything that we've been doing on our Twitter at Chainstack HQ.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ethan. I think perfect timing, right at the hour now. I look forward to talking again with you in the future, and thank you just so much for your time today. I hope you have a great day.
No problem. You too.
Talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.